Good afternoon. This is Media Center, Ukraine, Odesa. Before the start of the briefing, we want to express condolence to the Odessa actor Yevgeny Bober, who passed away after he fought severe illness. And now we are going to have a briefing dedicated to the condition of state language in Odessa. We are having with us Yaroslava Vitko-Prysiazhniuk, representative of the Commissioner for the Protection of the State Language in the Odessa region, and Nataliya Orobets, coordinator of the Yedina project in Odessa. How many people in Odessa region speak Ukrainian? Thank you very much for your question. In October last year, the Democratic Initiatives Foundation had a survey, and according to the results of this survey, 57.8% of our citizens believe that Ukrainian is their native language in Odessa and in Odessa region. 27% named Russia. 5% another language, and 8% refused to answer the question. If we compare it with the general Ukrainian context, almost 83% of our citizens named Ukrainian native language. Only 10% of citizens named Russian language as their native language, and the rest refused to answer the question. These are numbers that show how many people believe Ukrainian is their native language. And it is interesting to compare this with the data about prevailing language in their everyday speaking. 25% of persons in Odessa region speak Ukrainian at home. 60% communicate at home in Russian language. I think that these numbers are quite eloquent, and I believe that different people have different approaches when it comes to understanding what language is their native language. And we can see now a trend that not all people speak Ukrainian in a different at home. Are there reliable sources for such information? Now we're speaking about the survey that was conducted by Ilka Kuchereva Democratic Initiatives Foundation last year, and just 2-3 months ago they presented the results, and 2-3 weeks the results were presented in Odessa at the common briefing of the head of foundation and the commissioner. Can you tell us about the changes in these numbers, starting from the revolution of dignity and the full-scale invasion? I cannot now share with you precise numbers because I don't know what were the numbers before 2014. And I can just express my subjective perception. During such big historical events like the Revolution of Dignity and the full-scale invasion of the Russian Federation of Ukraine, all peoples, and Ukrainians are no exception, experience a certain surge of their national self-perception. And every time I say that before the 24th of February we had the population of Ukraine, and after the 24th of February this population became citizens. And this is what scientists also say. For Ukrainians, including Odesa residents, after the 24th of February last year, and some of them after 2014, just thought over why they don't use state language at home. And statistics says that most Odesa, that bigger amount of Odesa residents believe that Ukrainian is their native language, but less number communicates Ukrainian at home. And I have a lot of friends who decided to speak Ukrainian after 2014 and after the 24th of February last year. And we can see the trends when it comes to following Ukrainian legislation. And now we can see the increased popularity of Ukrainian language in this society. And it is very important that we have such processes now. Natalia, now the question is to you. Are there schools and classes in Odessa, Ukrainian classes for adults? Are they popular? This is a very popular question, and it has been mentioned after the start of the full-scale invasion. We woke up as citizens, not just like a population. And Odessa residents, as other Ukrainians, just felt that they were Ukrainians, and they started using Ukrainian languages. And we have speaking clubs in Odessa that some of them are organized free of charge. So the language course is 28 days. There are webinars, meetings with our star ambassadors, and there are also speaking clubs in our city. We have five venues in the city. We have highly qualified moderators who have undergone training provided by Yedina project. And I would like to inform you that on the 6th of April, we are going to launch the 12th Ukrainian language course, and our project, Yedina project, will celebrate 1-year anniversary, and it is very important for us. Even in the liberated Balaklia, we have 2 speaking clubs already, and we can see that the popularity of Ukrainian language is only growing. And this is a significant support of the society, because actually no one believed that we would last so long, but we can see only an increasing demand from our citizens. And I'm sure that the situation will even improve, because now we are covering the whole oblast. We have a question from a journalist who is watching online broadcast. How do you think, can we see the deterioration of the situation after our victory? This is a very difficult question. We need to understand that before 2014, before the 24th February of 2022, the presence of Ukrainian language was not enough in mass media and in our cultural paradigm. And that was the result of the Russian hybrid aggression. It is not a secret that the war started not on the 24th of February 2022 and not even in 2014 with the annexation of the Crimea. Actually, the war started long ago. That was Russia-Ukraine hybrid war. I have personal data for such massive aggression in 2005, 2006. And if you remember, they started speaking among politicians, there is no difference what language to speak, that Russia should become the second state language, and the climax of this hybrid war was seen by 2013-2014, and we have the decision of the Constitution Court of 2021 that showed that the language issue was a key tool of that hybrid war. And just not to have such throwback, we need to prevent the continuation of such Russia-Ukraine hybrid war. And we need to have the counter-propaganda and active awareness-raising campaigns. And we need adequate state language policy, because now we understand the results of such hybrid war. That's why the state should support to the maximum extent possible the development of Ukrainian culture and Ukrainian language, like it was in 2019, when the law of Ukraine on Ukrainian language as the state language was adopted. So such counter-propaganda should be ongoing after the 24th of February 2022. And we saw a surge of such activities, and everyone started saying that it was important to follow information hygiene. And I believe that such throwback is possible only with the new wave of the hybrid war. And I hope that we will win in this war, as in a physical war. How many fines were collected last year for the violation of language law? The Secretariat of the Commissioner does not have such statistics, because we have the main rule in our work, which is not to punish for the violation of the language law, but we see our aim in supporting implementation of the law. So if we get information about violations, we respond in the form of communication with the violators to understand what was the reason of their behavior. And sometimes we can have administrative protocols, but not always they are followed by fines. Quite often the commissioner can make a decision that only preventive measures should be taken for the first-time violation. But we keep records of violations, their administrative protocols, but not always this becomes known to mass media, like it was in Odesa. I'm now telling about the case in one of cafes of Odesa, when a guest wanted to be served in Ukrainian language, but was refused. This is only one case that became public. I'm, as a representative of the commissioner, drafted 4 or 5 administrative protocols over March, but not all of them were followed by fines. We have more questions from our journalists. What are the cases referred to the representatives of the commissioner in the region? We should start from the fact that Odesa is a runner-up when it comes to the amount of complaints submitted to the commissioner. As of the 1st March, for 2 months, 60 complaints were received from Odesa region, which is around 15% of the total number of complaints from the whole of Ukraine. If to compare these numbers to the previous year. That number reached around 6-7% last year. This doesn't mean that number of violations increased in this year. This means that Odessa residents are now triggered when they face the violation of language law. And they do everything possible to inform about such cases. When it comes to the content of these violations, there are no big differences with other cities. The general trend all over Ukraine is complaints about the language the e-platforms and websites use. And in Odessa region, most complaints are filed with regard to the cafes, restaurants, where people were refused to get services in Ukrainian languages, as well as the receipts and menus that are not in the state language. Recently, there has been an increased number of signs and signboards. Odessa now pay attention more to the fact that not all signboards are in Ukrainian language. We also have complaints about the language of educational process, the language used by cultural institutions. And over the last month, I've received several complaints with regard to entertaining institutions in the city. Of course, we respond to all these complaints, and we use tailored algorithm for different cases. Sometimes we only send an information letter to inform a violator about the violation. We also inform that the law envisages liability if the violator fails to remove such violations. If we clearly understand who is the violator, who is the subject of the violation, we draft a protocol. In severe cases, we start procedures of state control to get as much information as possible to understand the frequency of such violations in different outlets. It is also important for us to understand what measures are taken to prevent such violations in the future. We respond to all complaints, but we use individual approach for different cases. Thank you. Dear colleagues, do we have any questions? Good afternoon. My name is Anatoly Kosin, Media Center, Ukraine, Odessa. I have the following question, but I'm not sure that you have this information, but I will ask anyway. There were cases when our society used such tools as hatred and boycotts against violators. Do you have an example of a successful case in the city of Odessa or in the Odessa Oblast when a violator finally understood that without following the legislation, he or she will not be able to keep their customers? Thank you very much for such a question. This is a very interesting question. I'm now trying to recollect all the cases. To say the truth, I was appointed 8 months ago, but I have not actually met in my practice those such violators. There was only one case in the cafe when there was a huge scandal, and there was a lot of information in mass media, in social media, and I visited that outlet 2 times to draft a protocol. That was 2 days after the violation took place. Then I met him again 2 weeks later. And even 2 days later, after the violation took place, the menu was already in Ukrainian language. The next time when I came to all signboards, all information boards were in Ukrainian language, according to the law. And I believe that when it comes to business, a lot of and most economic operators understand that their positive image depends on whether they violate language legislation or not. As for such principal violators, recently there has been quite an interesting case. We drafted an administrative protocol against one of the people's deputy, and he told me that this is not the last time that we saw each other. Maybe he plans to violate language legislation in the future. I have one more question to Ms. Orobets. Perhaps you can share information about such cases when restaurants or cafes address you with a request to teach their staff Ukrainian language. Thank you very much for the question. Actually, people who attend our courses, they have different motivations. Some of them say that they are officials and they need to improve their language, and they want to find the Ukrainian-speaking people who will help them to improve their command of language. We have other people who say that they cannot speak any longer the language of the occupier. Some want to improve their knowledge of English language to help their children with home assignments. So most people are motivated. And people realize that they need this, that they need to improve their knowledge of the Ukrainian language. And I'd like to remind that on the 6th of April, we are going to launch the 12th course, including speaking clubs. This is very important, and I would like to invite everyone to join us, because on the 9th year of war, we need to realize the importance of the Ukrainian language, contrary to those propaganda that was launched by our enemies. And Ms. Vitko-Prysiazhniuk has already mentioned statistics. Most people speak Ukrainian in public area, despite the fact that they speak Russian at home. This means that this is a very important issue now. In public places, we can hear Ukrainian language, and we can see the result beyond our mandate. And I'm really very pleased to see this. Thank you. Natalia, there is one more question to you. What is the age of people who attend your courses? And what is the reason of the most popular age? Thank you very much for the question. I love this question, actually. When I tell about speaking clubs, actually, I'm often asked about the age of our students. When we start in April last year, we had people of various ages, and we have even a mini group for children aged 7-12. We had group for older people and for young people. And now it depends on the course. And I can't say that we have only young people or only elderly. And our last course was encompassed people of older age, elderly people. And those people, they lived in the USSR, and they learned before Ukraine got its independence. And we know that we are now facing the results of 400 years of prohibition of Ukrainian language. But our state is developing now. That's why I cannot tell you about the most popular age of people who attend our courses. But actually, I can say that it's great when we have young and older people in our groups, because they communicate, they support each other. And our teacher once told me that she was very motivated when she saw young people speaking Ukrainian and dressed according to the trends. So that's why there is no specific age. When it's come to different types of classes, like Sandbox Kids Education Center, of course, there we focus more on kids. If I'm not mistaken, up to 12 years. But when it comes to some general venues, it doesn't matter what age you are, we will help you with improving your language skills. Thank you for being with us today. We've had with us Yaroslava Vitko-Prysiazhniuk and Nataliya Orobets, and see you at 2 p.m. Stay tuned.